Hey, this is Dave for Big Bits, and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to touch on several things really quickly, but most importantly is some technical analysis on some of the markets right now. Not going to go in depth a whole lot today because there's a lot to cover. I really want to talk about the channel just a little bit, and then also I want some feedback from you all on some new intro videos to the actual videos we're doing here on the channel, because I don't know, I'm kind of getting kind of tired of the one that we have, and I have access to more, so I figure we try some out and see if I can get your opinion on that. I think I'm going to put a poll up in the video and let you all vote on that, and I'll come back and check and see what you all think, and I might alternate between them. We'll see. But anyway, the channel's doing really good. We've gotten a lot of views, specifically over the weekends lately. It's been really good. I'm really happy with that. I posted there is an outside chance that we get to 2,000 by the end of the month, and that's just insane for me to think. We've got a lot of stuff going on here. I'm working on a lot of things to improve the channel and get things working better, but there's been a lot of work and contact with people with other organizations who are actually communicating with me on things that they would like to see as well. So that's good to see that these things are moving along as I would have liked. And as far as the technical analysis goes, I'm going to be pretty quick, but hopefully you're following me on Twitter and you're subscribed here on YouTube. But if you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen this tweet where I talked about how the S&P was getting ready to touch the 50-day simple moving average, and that this is in an ascending wedge. You can kind of see my red lines here, and that I thought it would be a good time for a short. Now, if you followed me there, and if you also looked at the chart and you thought the same way, then that would have been a pretty good idea, because if we look at it now, you can see the tweet was about here, pretty much right at the top, and then it went down pretty much immediately after that. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the S&P again in just a moment, but for now, I'm going to switch back to just Bitcoin, and we'll zoom in here. Now, if you haven't watched the previous videos, these red lines, these red squiggly lines, are just some lines that I made as sort of a dream scenario for the halving. This tall red line is the anticipated date of the halving, and I was hoping this price action would occur up until then, and that would lead into a very good scenario for a pump in price immediately after. Now that's pretty pretty well pretty much I can't even think of the word right now. This is incredible to think it could do that. I mean, that's too much in my opinion. I don't know why I can't think of the right word. I just can't. But that's probably a bit too much, but who knows? This is an event that only happens once every 4 years. But let's also go back and take a look at these indicators here. You can see I also drew the lines on here. The stochastic, I had it kind of hanging out around here. Now what happened was the price was, it dropped like I expected, but it actually went back green a little bit quicker than I would have liked to have lined up with this, but everything else seems to be lining up pretty well on these other indicators for what I had kind of predicted, and well, more so wished for than predicted. But just looking at the chart, this is what I was kind of seeing could happen and would have been what I would have enjoyed to see. Now this is completely fine. The stochastic is a little bit slower typically than the stochastic RSI. So what also might happen, in my opinion, is that both of these come down to oversold territory, stay down here for a little while, pop back up, kind of like I have here, and then come back down, and then back up again. That's a pretty common pattern. You can see that similarly here. The indicator goes up, comes back down, back up, and then back before it goes back down. So these are the ways these things typically work in a pattern. You can see going back, there's usually two bumps up at the top, or two bumps up at the bottom. So you hit the bottom here, and then you hit the bottom here again. Rarely do you see that it's not low like that for extended periods, based on what I can see. So this is kind of what I'm thinking still. Now I want to go to the S&P just to show you all what I was thinking over there. Give me just a moment. Why did I type that in wrong? I should have remembered it's the SPX 500. All right, so my lines aren't right here, but we've got something similar here with the S&P with Bitcoin, is that you have this kind of double touch here at the top with the stochastic RSI, and then you also have the stochastic, which is turning down. Now, I typically don't really work with these more traditional markets like with the S&P, but I have recently opened a brokerage account and I'm trying that stuff out, so I am taking a look at that stuff now. Now the smooth RSI, now this is one that I am very interested in. This is my indicator that I created on TradingView. If you haven't been watching the channel, you should go back and look at some of the videos here. I do a bunch of tutorials on creating your own indicators. You check out my profile on TradingView, the link's in the description, and if you consider a paid plan eventually, please use the referral link in the description of the video as well. Now, as far as this indicator, what I have been noticing lately is that the smooth histogram has actually been a little bit better of a predictor in when a trend is about to change than the actual RSI direction. Now, usually when they both pair together, that's when you've got a really good trend change. So like here, when the price went down and the histogram, well, the RSI went down, excuse me, and the smooth histogram went down, that was a nice correlation. That probably would have been a good short when it crossed over from positive to negative territory. However, here, when we went from negative to positive, the smooth RSI line itself stayed relatively flat. So that one would have been a pretty hesitant move to actually make, in my opinion. And I probably would have not got back in on any of these, but what I am looking at now is that the RSI is about to switch under the smooth RSI, and at the same time the smooth histogram looks like it might be getting ready to turn back down and potentially go negative as well. So it might take a couple of days to do that, but I'm watching that pretty closely. And with the moving averages I showed you, that's actually pretty important to keep in mind. Let me reset these defaults. Okay, so there's that 50 period moving average we were talking about earlier that I'm watching out for. I'm not really going to go into altcoins or other markets or stocks or anything like that. Basically, Bitcoin and the S&P are pretty much just about all you need. Now, there's other ones you can look at, but for me, that's all I'm going to look at for now. And of course, if you have any questions, please always leave me a message. I try and get to you, but everything's getting a lot busier now. I've gotten a lot of messages lately. I try to keep up with all of them, and if I haven't been able to, I'm sorry about that. But between the coronavirus and the kids staying home from school, having to do their homework here, my day job, and all these other things, it's getting to be a lot right now. So I can't really prioritize these conversations as much as I would like to, or I have. But we're still trying to make content here and keep things going. So the March dev blog also came out for Light Night. Now, I did a video about this yesterday. I hope you saw that. We went through the actual gameplay that they released on their first release of the single player. And it's pretty much just a demo what they did, but it was really nice to get to look at, and I'll go over this in detail another time in another video, probably later this week, and probably look a little bit more in depth at the actual game itself. Now, as far as the news, this is what's really important to me, and I think it's probably important to most of you all, and this is very big. I've covered the central bank digital currencies a lot closer than a lot of major channels on YouTube have. I am very much intrigued by what they're doing here. This is going to have major implications on how society works. I mean, this is your money. This is pretty much the most important thing you have besides your family and religion for most people. It's very critical to most people, so it's very important that they get these things right. Now, China, they're going to be pretty much one of the first major countries to test out their cryptocurrency. Well, maybe not a cryptocurrency, but CBDC. And they have leaked some screenshots of the app that they say would be the wallet for it. But what's really interesting is that this just isn't some random person who tweeted this. This is actually an executive director for Binance, and then also CZ, the Binance CEO, also retweeted those later. And obviously, I don't know Chinese, so I can't tell you what's going on here. But if Cointelegraph is reporting it, I tend to believe what they're saying, especially if CZ and the other person were involved as well. Now they're doing this in 4 cities, and if you remember, the Bahamas CBDC test that they did was, I believe, on 1 island. So this is probably actually a much larger test. Now, if you're not familiar with China, some of these names aren't too familiar, but Shenzhen is probably the most familiar out of those, at least to me, because I get a lot of I've dealt with a lot of packages from there in the past. So Shenzhen is definitely one that I'm familiar with. It's interesting to see that in here, and they've also talked about another one that's pretty more technologically advanced, sort of like a super city. They'd say a smart city brain project here. But these are all pretty interesting. They remarked on the execution speed of China, CZ did, and I will say that it is coming out very quick, especially for a very large country like China. And it's very important that they at least get the most fundamental things right here, and there cannot be any bugs on the first go around. Otherwise, they're going to have a huge mess. Now, if they get a very simple system out there that's bug free, which it's hard to believe software would be bug free unless they've done very extensive testing, but their government kind of lends to actually being able to do this quicker than most, just because they can pretty much tell you what to do over there and force you to work on these things and force the execution of them much quicker. And if things don't work out, they have pretty much all the power. They can do whatever they want. They can scrap it, start over again, do whatever they want. So this is software anyway, essentially. So what you're going to be looking at is, even if there are limitations, they can upgrade it later, like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, like all these other blockchain projects. It's just software. They can update these things and add changes into it. Now with blockchain, it's a little bit different because people have to consider the ramifications of those. Now if you're a government doing a CBDC, you can pretty much do whatever you want as long as you get it passed through your legislator or your equivalent of that in whichever country you're in. So it's really interesting to keep an eye on this. This is definitely one of the big things in this decade, in my opinion, are these CBDCs, and specifically China getting out of the gate quicker than everyone else. Now they've also set up a committee for some of these blockchain and DLT standards, which is actually good news. These are the things that you should want to see if you support blockchain and cryptocurrencies, because you want there to be these things. You don't want to be operating in the dark. I mean, you might, but if you want these things to really take off and you want the most out of them, then you'll want them to come into the light and be accepted. Now, they can't come into the light and be accepted unless the government says this is okay, at least wherever you are regionally. And that doesn't mean they still can't be successful kind of operating in the dark. It just means they won't reach their full potential like they would if they were to step into the light and be supported essentially by the governments in a way that won't restrict them and keep things in the dark. And it's just really nice to see that there's more coming out. The G20 also had some concerns about stable coins, and that's not just Libra. And the really interesting part about the articles, it boils down to that they think that the ability to transact freely with these stable coins is their major financial stability threat, or at least that's what G20 thinks, or that committee with G20. Now, one of the things that was really interesting that they used as an example is this can be visualized in countries like Lebanon, which imposed strict capital controls in late 2019 and whose citizens are largely barred from their bank savings. So essentially, they don't like stable coins because they can't tell you when to stop using them or when to stop doing them. And it kind of makes sense, because if you're a government, you really want to have complete control of everything. You want to be able to add to the supply, subtract from the supply, pause everything if you needed to, lock certain accounts, freeze and unfreeze accounts, things like that. And with stable coins, that's just not an option. So I can see why they don't like it, but I believe stable coins are probably here to stay. I don't think there's much they can actually do about it for the most part unless they make them all illegal or something to that nature. So definitely another interesting thing to watch out for. And then also finally, the EU lawmakers also want to make a new regulator for their crypto blind spots, which is, this is exactly what I talked about earlier. This is probably something you want to see if you want the max potential out of blockchain and cryptocurrency. You need these government organizations to create these regulatory agencies who put in rules that allow these things to succeed instead of trying to step around existing rules and being afraid you're going to get hit with a lawsuit. Now, before I get into showing you the intro videos that I want to share, just remember that the April giveaway is still going on. The link to this should also be in the description of the video. And there's quite a few entries already so far for this period in the month. And remember, I do have a question one, which is worth many more entries than the other ones here. So if you've been watching my videos, then there's a good chance you'll know the answer to the question, or if you haven't, you probably won't know the answer. So if you've been watching, that's a good chance to get yourself a winning entry. Now, let me pull up these videos here for the intros. I'm going to put up a poll at the end of these so I can get your opinion. Let me switch on my desktop audio so you can hear these and make sure my head isn't in the way entirely. Okay, so this is number 1. See how you like it. Now, if these are too loud, I apologize. I don't know their volume level comparatively to how I talk just yet. So, like I said, if they're too loud, I apologize. That was number 1. This is number 2. All right, and number 3. I think this one's a little loud. I think that one was a little too loud. But if that one is chosen, I can obviously lower the volume on it. And number 4. Nice, and that one was a little loud too, but I liked all 4 of them. I have my favorites, and I might rotate in between using these, but ideally I would want to use one continuously going forward, at least for a period of time before I do change it. And I would really like, if you're actually watching the channel, to give me your feedback and let me know what you think about those. There should be a poll popping up. It might have already popped up. Please tell me which one you liked most. Remember, there are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just let me know which one you like the most, and I will consider using that as the intro going forward. Now, you might have also noticed in the video, I've thrown some other things into the video that should help with some engagement and growing the channel just a little bit. So I hope you don't mind those going forward. These are pretty common on YouTube to help grow your channel, and really that's what this is all about as part of the mission here, and increasing the adoption of cryptocurrency and spreading the awareness and just doing all this. Now, I do have a lot of other things going on that I'm working on to try and help with the channel, but this is just one of the many things. But for now, I think that's about it. If you like the video, please like, those really help, and also subscribe if you haven't already. If you're watching this video and you're this far through and you haven't subscribed, I'm kind of surprised because this is pretty niche to my channel. This is kind of what I do. I talk about crypto, talk about TA, talk about the crypto news, things like this. This is what we do here. But other than that, I think that's it for now. I'm going to have another PineScript video. I think at least one more out this week, maybe 2. And then I'm going to also look at the Light Night stuff. But other than that, I think that's it. Should have plenty of content coming out. I hope you like it. But other than that, and I know I've said this several times, thank you and have a nice day.